Hey, welcome. So
Welcome to our mobile studio.
we have to record today in our cave. I hate recording here because the lighting's so bad. But remember, yesterday I said don't let perfection get in the way of contribution, right? And so overnight or today when I left to go rock climbing, this parking lot was pretty much empty that we're camping in. And it's still empty, except there's a huge fifth wheel to my left and a huge fifth wheel to the right. And so we just didn't want to record outside because there's so many people and it just didn't feel right. So we're in our cave.
It's also super loud out there. We're like we already talked a little bit yesterday about
Lots of noise.
Lots of noise, and campground's not so awesome, but it's centrally located, so we're here, and this we'll take it.
Today's an exciting day, but before we get to that, it's make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Even if you don't like it, you should just totally like it, just to like it. No, I'm just kidding. If you like it. And remember, unfortunately, we can't turn comments on because we have kids, so many of them, and we're not allowed to turn comments on. But, I mean, if you think we're just as rad as Bucket List Family, I mean, they're at 1 million subscribers, just saying, our measly 5,000. We could easily catch them in, like, this year. Totally. Anyways. That's not the point. It's not about that. It would be nice to make more money this way, but what it is about and what gets us to show up every day is that we care about influencing the world, changing the world to be a better place for our kids, changing it to be a place where we thrive as human beings, as individuals, and thriving as a couple. We are kind of old school that we believe family values are pretty rad, and so we want to preserve them. And luckily, with everything that's gone on in the world, that we decided to take more of a stand and speak up. And you can like us, you can not like us, but we are here to make our voice heard. Anything you want to add to that?
Hallelujah.
So today is exciting because the new moon, you know, if you look out in the sky tonight, hopefully, well, it might have been last night, depending on how fast I can get this published. But if you look out, it's a new moon, meaning you won't see the moon. The new moon is in Aquarius. And Aquarius, Victor's going to stare at me tonight. Because he kind of doesn't know any of this. But to me, I was like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment. Because we have been talking for the last week about self-limiting beliefs. And Aquarius...
That I know about.
You're an expert?
I'm an expert in self-limiting beliefs. I hold mine like no one else. Just like, I'm going to hold on to this.
If anybody struggles with self-limiting beliefs, I challenge you to see if you can let go of yours before Victor. I think his persistence will pay off.
My persistent stubbornness.
Okay. So I had to make sure I did notes. Today, Gabi just published a blog about this, and she really explains this so much better than I can. In fact, I was just watching this like financial person that I follow for like crypto and stuff, and he brought on this other guy who says all this data, and in the end he's like, I'm glad you put all that data. You know, I just go off of intuition. That's pretty much me. I just kind of fire off of intuition. It makes sense. I do it. And then after like someone shows me some data, like, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So to be specific, here is Aquarius rules liberation. Okay, Aquarius is not a planet, in case you don't know much about the solar system. You know, if you went to school recently, you probably don't know anything about what a constitution is, what governments are like. You might not know that socialism and communism are pretty much the same, but we'll set that aside. For astrology, there's planets and there's our solar systems. So if you're in Aquarius, it's different than an actual planet. It's the position in the sky. Like imagine you're chunking the sky like a clock. Okay.
But you should go back and say how this all, why this is all valid and important before you get delved deep, right?
What do you think?
I think ultimately, initially, you watch astrology in the newspaper.
Well, just say it. I pretty much think my wife's crazy, but I love her. Okay. So.
No, it has to do more with understanding that where the position of the planets are have to deal with the energy. And if you can buy that or believe that, then you have to be able to respect where they are in position to you and how that can impact you.
And it is pretty deep to think about it because I did not believe in this stuff even a year ago.
Right.
Didn't really even pay attention to it. I just, intuition, lived my life a certain way. And then all of a sudden I learned about this stuff and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. You listen to the newspaper and their predictions based on Virgo and you go, oh, well, by being vague and ambiguous, they can kind of, well, something amazing might happen, but you be careful of dangers. What does that
It
tell
could
you?
apply to a lot of things. The point, it's not supposed to like tell you exactly how to
Correct.
walk down the street, but it is
Correct.
a good way to reflect on what you do want, right? We just talked about self-limiting beliefs. Self-limiting beliefs tend to be tied to this core desire that you either are ignoring or you're not facing. That like there is a core desire within you to do blank, but some belief system, whether you know it or not, is preventing you from doing it.
All right, so go ahead.
So let's go to Aquarius. Aquarius controls liberation, freedom, humanitarianism, individuality, technological advances, community collaboration, communication, contribution, expression. Okay, those are a lot of
things,
adjectives.
yeah, sure. But a lot of them should have triggered.
Now,
Oh, wow.
Robin, what do you mean? Like it controls freedom? Shouldn't we see the world looking a little different? We will. But it's going to take time because some of those don't, think back to American Revolution. Lately, we've been talking about the fall of Rome in our family, like how long these things take to transition is pretty, it doesn't happen overnight. And so today, new moon's in Aquarius. But what makes it really crazy is that two inner planets, Mercury and Venus, I believe, and two outer planets are Saturn and Jupiter and the sun. That's 6 things in Aquarius today. And they'll all be there, I think, for about a week that you'll notice all of this. Now, these inner planets affect you on an individual level, okay? Whether you believe it or not, you could just be like, okay, like I'm just going to play along with it. Like, all right, fine, Robin. It's going to affect me personally. And on an outer level, like for society and economics, Saturn and Jupiter have more of an influence on that. And of course, if you really study it, like I don't go so deep into studying it, but you can find in times in history when the planets were like this, these type of things happen. So
Sure.
Does it feel like society and economics might be shifting? Possibly. I mean, I know I spend way too much time listening to podcasts and YouTubes about economics, and I wasn't even into economics a couple months ago. It does feel like we're on the brink of something happening.
Something big.
And so let's just really keep it down to the individual. What does that mean right now? So we have a list of things that Victor and I were talking about that transfer over how the planets are affecting us right now and the self-limiting beliefs that we are just talking about. First one is, we are talking about how, and this is in Gabi's blog too, if you want to go deeper, but how we see ourselves as a part of a bigger puzzle. And if you've taken my chakra course, which you totally should, I talk about this in the third eye. How the third eye is like you seeing yourself as an important part of a bigger puzzle. Like, I know my piece of the puzzle is to be this person who inspires and pushes people, while Victor is the person who's like one-on-one nurturing the person who's a little bit more timid and introverted or shy and whatever they need to do. Whereas I'm more of a voice that's like, hey, you guys, we should all go do this. And we probably couldn't fill each other's role. And because of that, it's really important that the world has people like me and the world has people like him. And this is a really good time for us to notice that it takes all types. Can you imagine if every single person was just like you? What a horrible, like that's not what we want in the world.
It's not the point in the world.
And so we are talking about, do you want to talk about how you're saying how you're different? How do you see your flaws? Because this is a hard
Well,
thing.
for the longest time, first off, if you're listening to this, like I everything in me was about hide those flaws. Like, don't let them see you. Unfortunately, almost 30 years with this one, and she calls me on everything, like, oh, you're just doing that thing where you're and so that can be extremely frustrating. But those flaws were about me just hiding them, and then also that piece of the puzzle and how I existed in the world. I kind of knew I was different in a lot of ways because I didn't have the same value system that other people had. What was important to me seemed to be completely different than even other males my age, and still for a big part, I feel completely different. And so I thought, well, I'm just gonna keep this to myself. I feel like I have blank, blank, and blank, so I don't need to necessarily be out standing at the top of the mountain screaming it out. Like, your family's important, your relationship's way more important than your career or that car or that mansion or whatever. And so I never really felt that I needed to have that voice to get out there to share that, and also that self-sacrificing part of me, which is always like give until you can't give. I just never came across too many people that are like that. So real early on, I knew that difference made me kind of stand out to the side always and just do my own thing. And probably what drew each other, right? Those opposites sort of attract. But it gave me an opportunity to now kind of go, well, maybe I do need to tell people a little bit to use my throat chakra. Is it blocked, Robin? Robin says I don't use my throat enough, so I assume there's this big red spot or something. It's going to happen. A little chest burster is going to come out or something.
I'm very scared. When its throat chakra opens, it's going to be exciting but scary. Okay, the to put into context what Victor said so eloquently is Victor spent over 20 years running a business where clients would come in. Now, most clients tended to be housewives. And it's all great, it's all good, but a lot of times, even though he's helping them physically, a lot of times felt like, guy, why isn't your husband listening to you on this? Well, we're in an affluent community, and maybe that husband was making 10 times the amount of money in that hour. But sometimes there's this trade-off, and I think as a self-limiting belief that we've been working through is we have this trade-off that you can only be kind and poor, or you can be rich and and so that was a very that really encapsulates that feeling of being a piece of the puzzle, because I know for a long time Victor felt like, well, I'm weird, I'm different because I'm so compassionate, and all these other husbands, they're not compassionate, they don't listen to their wives. I mean, the flip side is, like, he asked me, it's the worst, he asked me, like, how are you doing? Don't ask me how I'm doing, I'm good, okay? I'm good, I don't need to, but like, what are we going to talk about where we're going next week? And he's just so, and this is where we're here to tell you, like, opposites attract for a reason, okay? I'm not always good, but it takes a long time for me to get to that level, or I don't really, I'm so logically brained that I'm kind of dissecting that in my head. And that's what this Age of Aquarius is about, is that we're supposed to reflect on our communication, and I have to make sure I don't mess it up, so I look at my notes. That's and okay. Inviting our logical brain to embrace a visionary and idealistic approach. I have no trouble being visionary, idealistic. I pretty much live most of my life, but I did notice like this element of, and this is something I've like been working on for a long time, not just this week, but this element of self-reflect, visionary, idealistic. Oh, wait. That's why we started doing these videos, because I'm like, I want this. You're doing this. Maybe we can bring it together. Maybe we can connect some dots between us. And if we're going to connect them between us, maybe we can share everybody else. So he had that element of that. But as a really compassionate wife, when he said those flaws, like, I do this, I go, look, that's amazing. That's so good. But I know you have this layer of resentment that the people sending you money make 10 times what you make. You just make it in a different way, but you're just as valuable. And so all of us are like, I think we used to think we were really weird. We are really flawed and kind of don't fit in anywhere. But I think deep down, everybody feels like that. They just hide it or show it in different ways, or maybe you feel like you just fit in so well in a community that you don't really want to fit in. And that's hard. But at the same time, like everything that's gone on in the world is almost like giving everybody a green light to be like, shift it. Find where you do fit in. Totally embrace those flaws, because we each do really have something to give. And do you want to
let me interject. I think one of the, and again, personal experience, total vulnerability, I am a really amazing chameleon. So we all have this ability to, and some better than others, that they can kind of morph to, if I hang out with these friends and I hang out with these friends, or I hang out with this client. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to connect with lots of different people, but you have to decide at some point, are you connecting or are you just changing to fit in?
It's a really hard thing, especially if you're a type 2.
Right. If you're changing to fit in, then you might lose yourself in the process. So it's real critical to have that understanding and reflect on that and make that, if you are doing that consciously, like, be careful, because there's a good chance you're going to lose what you want, what you believed in, because you've continued to morph. So don't be afraid.
And honestly, we were talking about this today, and I thought about, you guys can email me. I don't know how to provide, besides what we're doing here, or more of this a community feel, in that I think for a lot of people, I know for what we've gone through, and Victor trying to discover this balance between how can I add value without losing who I am? How can I be me? I'm so used to chameleonizing. I don't even know who I am, and if I discover who I am, what if I get rejected? And that's got to be a really hard thing for a lot of people to go, man, I don't like how people describe me is not necessarily who I want to be, but if I choose to be who I want to be, like, I might get rejected along the way. And to someone like me, if you're a type 8, you're like, whatever, yeah, reject me. But even as type 8s that like to be so tough, really do need, like, the only reason I've been able to grow is because I have somebody like this who's catching me along the way and giving me unconditional love. So in some ways, if you're like more assertive like me, you might need to find somebody a little bit more compassionate in your life who can nurture that along and expose those layers, and vice versa. Like, if you're like, oh my gosh, if I let go, if I unravel, like, I don't know who will catch me along the way. And you might need somebody who's a little bit more strong and assertive in your life to be like, go for it, go there, and I got you. It'll be okay. So the last things that Aquarius really talks about, well, it really is that combination. It's that how can we contribute to the bigger puzzle piece? How can we be a part of something? And I know when I asked Victor this morning, I'm like, well, where do you see the bigger picture of the world? He was kind of like, shoot, I'm just trying to get through the day. I don't really know. I don't really think about what I see, this greater picture of what the world should move to. I catch people right now talking about when this is over, and part of me feels like, how do you expect this to be over? Like, what do you exactly think is going to happen for this to be over? And some people are like, oh, well, whatever, Trump's going to come back in, or these shots are going to save everything, or like, I think we're all in misconceptions. This only changes when we change within, when we redefine what our experience in life is, and then we're brave enough to actually go do it, because nobody external is going to be able to solve our problems. I know, because we went and hid in Polson for a while, and I love it now, but at first I was like, man, we're just hiding in fear, and that's not good either. So we had to step out into the world, and then when we started creating, like, okay, well, this is the type of world I want to step into, you find it. It's not the whole, I could easily have the mindset of like, oh my gosh, the world's scary, and I could absolutely in 5 minutes find the world is scary. But that was a lot, I know. I guess it's in the end. Ooh, I got a really good side story. I know Victor hasn't talked. Do you want to add anything to that before?
No, that's okay.
Okay. A really good side story for this. Sorry, it went longer than 15 minutes. So I went rock climbing with Gabi. I took everybody but Danny and Victor. They stayed back. And we're in Mesquite, Nevada, and you head out on a dirt road for 10 miles. The last 2 miles are a little rough. They're not, you have 4-wheel drive, so it's doable, but it was a little rough. And so we get out there and you hike up 10 minutes. Remember yesterday I told you it was supposed to be like comparable to Europe? It totally was. It was a gorgeous area, but it's out there. It's not like Europe. The same thing is on the side of the highway, roadside. It's ridiculous. But we get out there, and there's a rock. Like, so Gabi and Isabel are on belay climbing. I was just standing there waiting my turn, and Jiraiya climbed up 12 to 15 feet on a rock ledge. And he's like, can I climb up there? I'm like, yeah, don't fall. Like, that's just normal. I'm like, yeah, don't fall. And he's like, okay. And so he climbs up, and he's fine. I said, well, you probably should think about, are you going to be able to get down? Because I'm not going to come get you. He's like, yeah, I got it. And that's pretty normal, because I know he's my kid who's comfortable doing that. Sure. And And so I started to think about it, because if Victor was there, he would have been a little bit like naturally, wouldn't mean to, but it would accidentally be like, be careful, be careful. And so I stood there thinking about, okay,
I don't
why?
do that anymore.
That's true. That was his past life. So,
what are you doing, man?
and so, or you just go like, I don't want to look.
I'm just going to say, yeah.
So I could think about it and I go, well, there's two factors. One, I was raised where I was allowed to do that, so I never really had fear around doing that. And two, I actually did it, and so I physically know what it's like to climb up there and to feel capable. And so I wasn't uncomfortable with that situation. Now, Tatiana was also with us. She would never ask to climb up it. She's terrified of heights. She's scared. She's just pretty much scared about. In fact, she was scared of a bee today while we were up there. She ran from the bee, tripped and fell and scraped up herself running from a bee. Completely opposite child. I wouldn't even have to have that conversation with her because she wouldn't even want to put it there. If anything, I would probably should be like trying to, you can climb up, but the same thing, I wouldn't even encourage her because I'm smart enough to know like she'd probably fall. Like she just doesn't have nature nor nurture combined that work on to do that. As much as I want to nurture her, I'm just like, well, there's too many other things. So long story. As we're leaving, I joke with Tati, you're not going to get me in trouble. I didn't actually do it, but we were driving out, and Tati though loves like me driving fast on dirt roads. She loves like the off-road. She won't climb, she's scared of heights, but she loves. So I would like hit some turns kind of fast and go over the whoop-de-doos quick and be like, arms up. And then we get close to the end. Now Danny, my 21-year-old, doesn't drive. And I go, hey Tati, you want to drive on the dirt road? And she's like, oh, no, it's okay. I'm like, do your feet reach the pedal? No, it's okay. And I said, well, okay, maybe next time we'll practice. And she goes, I said, but do you think you could drive better than your brother? And she's like, yeah, because he's scared. And I'm like, interesting. I said, so do you think having fear limits your ability to do something? She's like, oh yeah, definitely. I'm like, and I didn't even have to say the next line. She looked at me. She's like, yeah, I should not be so scared all the time of everything. So she kind of walked herself into that. 2 lessons there in one, but it was a pretty...
2 lessons there. Don't fall for the trap that Robin sets. The second one is fear is going to always change how you perceive something, right?
Yes. So to wrap it up, take a moment. Maybe you could even actually get out a notebook and write it down.
We have ours.
What fears are limiting me right now? Not even what self-limiting beliefs. What fear? Like Robin, I'm really afraid that if I go outside without a mask, like I'm gonna get sick and die. Like I know. I call my mom and I'm like, what is going on still? And she's like, I'm just so scared. I'm like, doesn't it kind of seem like the flu? Oh my gosh, yes, but I am so scared of getting the flu. I might die if I have the flu. I'm like, okay, I accept. Like, and so we have to accept that. That's okay. I'm allowed to think this. You're allowed to think that. That's the age of Aquarius. Each individual is allowed with our own thoughts and beliefs, but we're part of a greater picture. And as long as our fears aren't being imposed on the other person, and we're actively working through our own fears and not like requiring somebody else to make those decisions, then that's how the age of Aquarius is going to make it so that we transition into this really amazing world pretty soon.
So your lesson. Get a notebook, start writing some of this stuff down. This creates lessons. Is the same kind of stuff Robin has me do. So to give you like an idea of what self-limiting beliefs for me, I don't like stinking at anything. I like being good. That's my 3 side. That's my 2-3 side. Like I like being good at everything I do.
Or even so that people perceive you as good,
well,
right?
Hold on. Yeah, exactly. So fear of failure is a self-limiting belief. Like I won't do that unless I'm going to be successful. There's also like a fear of not being accepted. That goes back to my 2. And then process pain is tough for me always. Like I'm just afraid of the process of learning that new thing. It's gonna, and in the end, it's like a dog, and the bark is worse than the bite. You know, it's a lot of times process pain isn't that bad, but just what you perceive on that. And so those are 3 self-limiting beliefs I have, and I'm always constantly working on them. But look, you need to write these things down. It's not enough to think it. For a long time, I would take a look at all the pamphlets and books and courses that these guys have. Now we just go mentally through it. It's not enough. You got to put it to paper, even if it means you never look at it, or maybe you write it and you burn it. You got to put it down.
Yeah, and in my chakra course, I tell people our brain is 5 times more likely to remember a stick than a carrot. So if something good happens in your life, you kind of remember it. Okay, let's say it gets 20% power. But if something bad happens in your life, you remember that 5 times more, 100%. So basic math here. So it's really, really important
to remember
that,
carrots.
yes, you have to do something, whether it's put it on a sticky note, create a physical reminder of it, like, wow, because I can tell you for Victor, like, if he probably needs, that's the next thing in our travels, is to actively do that. Like, right, oh my gosh, we went down that dirt road, we didn't die, we didn't have a flat tire, we didn't this, like, it was a win. It was an amazing day. I need to write this and put it up somewhere, that I had a carrot today, and I need to like see it over and over and soak it in, so I remember that like good things actually happen to me in life all the time. I just have this memory that only wants to remember those bad things. But when we start writing them down and put them somewhere, and then we're going to be like, wait, more good things happen to me than bad. And it's really powerful.
You gotta bring those up, is what she's saying, to overpower the negativity.
Tell your brain 5 times more
often. And again, that could be just evolution. We're wired to remember that. Okay, if I go get a sip of this water, oh my gosh, the alligator's gonna come bite me. That's supposed to remind us for survival. But we have this higher brain that we can actively diffuse that.
Awesome. So I think we gave you plenty of inspiration.
Plenty to work on.
Today.
Mind
Maybe
blown.
I'm hoping Isabel and Gabi record tomorrow morning or tonight a carry-on of this, a supplement, thank you, of Age of Aquarius. Yes, it is true. For massages, and for him to finish to be my dictionary, basically, because I talk so fast.
Stars.
He listened to the video I recorded this morning, and I said, is that on fast forward? Because I listen to everything at 1.75 on YouTube, and I go, do you have it on fast? And he said,
that's just how fast she talks.
And somebody asked me for my list of what I listen to when I'm digesting all this information. So I'm coming up with a blog. I'll try to have it out in the next couple of days, because it's actually kind of creepy and yet entertaining to see what the things are, the resources, right, that I listen to.
It's all over the place. It's all over the place. All right. See you guys next time.